PIN incorrect. The cold voice echoed in my apartment. My stepmother changed it. You can sleep in the garage, she said. As her son pulled his suitcase into my room, an email flashed. Confirmation for your cash-out refinance appraisal on Monday. I never applied for that loan. The second I pressed record on my phone, this stopped being a family matter. It became a criminal file. My name is Alice Lawson. The high-altitude Denver sun was already cutting sharp lines across my bedroom floor when the sound jolted me awake. It was Saturday morning, just past 8. A sliver of light pierced the blackout curtains I'd installed myself, striking the dusty air. But it was not the light that woke me. It was the chime. A cheerful, electronic chime followed by 3 short, sharp beeps and a synthesized voice. Access denied. I sat bolt upright, my heart kicking against my ribs. I must have been dreaming. I live alone. I own this condo. I run my interior design business. Hearthline Studio. Right from the converted second bedroom. Nobody uses the smart lock but me. Access denied. It came again. Someone was actively trying to get in. I grabbed the heavy glass water carafe from my nightstand, my feet hitting the cold hardwood. I padded to the entryway, my sleep fog turning icy. I watched the keypad through the peephole. A hand, manicured, heavy with rings I recognized, was inputting a code again. Access denied. A loud, impatient sigh. Then, a fist hammered the door. Not a knock. A hammer. Alice, open this door. I know you are in there. It was Monica, my stepmother. I stared at the wood grain of the door, my pulse hammering in my ears. Why was she here? Why was she trying to break in? Alice, I am not playing. Chase is here. Open the door. I fumbled with my phone on the entryway table, my thumb finding the camera app. I swiped to video and hit the red circle. Then, bracing myself, I slid the heavy-duty security chain into its track. The click of the metal felt absurdly small against the pounding. I opened the door just enough for the chain to catch. Maybe 3 inches. The sight that greeted me was pure chaos. Framed in the narrow opening, Monica Vale, my father's wife, stood flushed, her expensive blonde blowout already wilting in the dry Denver air. Beside her, shifting his weight impatiently, was her son. Chase. He was 23, perpetually unemployed, and clutching the handle of a large rolling suitcase. He would not meet my eye. Instead, he was staring intently at his phone, as if waiting for a signal, a green light. What are you doing, Monica? You cannot just change my lock, Monica scoffed. A sharp, ugly sound. She actually rolled her eyes. Don't be dramatic. Alice, Chase needs a place to stay. You know his startup is finally getting off the ground. I blinked. His startup. What does that have to do with my apartment? He needs the space, she said, her voice dropping to that icy, reasonable tone she used right before delivering an ultimatum. This place is perfect for him. You can sleep in the garage. The words hung in the air of the hallway. The garage. My father and Monica lived in a sprawling new build in Lakewood with a 3-car garage. This condo building did not even have a private garage, just a shared concrete parking structure downstairs. She was not offering me a place. She was demoting me. She was telling me I was less than... Before I could respond, Chase, emboldened by my silence, gave the door a hard shove. The chain snapped taut, the wood frame groaning. Hey, I yelled, pushing back. Just let us in, Alice, Chase muttered, still looking at his phone. He was holding something else in his other hand, a thick brown accordion folder, bulging with paperwork. Get back from the door. Chase, I ordered. I looked straight at Monica. My phone held steady, the lens capturing every twitch of her perfectly penciled eyebrows. This is my home, Monica. You cannot come here and change my locks and demand entry. Oh, Alice, she sighed, adopting a look of profound disappointment. We were hoping you would not make this difficult. This apartment was always meant for Chase. Your father and I discussed it. It's time for you to move on. This apartment was meant for me, I countered, my voice shaking despite my attempt to keep it level. I bought it. I pay the mortgage. About that, Monica said. She took the brown folder from Chase. We have taken care of the details. She tried to shove the folder through the gap. I did not take it. She let the papers flutter to the floor of my entryway. What is that? It is just the paperwork, honey, she said. The last word a complete mockery. A simple power of attorney and the refinance application. It is all pre-filled. We just need your signature to transfer the deed to Chase. It's for his business loan. My blood ran cold. Refinance application, power of attorney. I stepped back from the door, my mind racing. I could see the tops of the papers from where I stood, a logo for First Mountain Bank, a quitclaim deed, my name, typed neatly, awaiting a signature. Hold on, I said. My voice was suddenly clear, sharp. The shock was burning away, leaving something hard and cold in its place. I walked away from the door, ignoring Monica's sharp, "Alice, get back here." I went straight to my office, to the fireproof safe hidden behind a framed blueprint. I spun the dial, my fingers steady, and pulled out my own folder, the real folder. I walked back to the door. Monica and Chase were whispering frantically in the hall. You seem confused. Monica, I said, my voice ringing with authority I did not know I possessed. I held up the thick sheaf of papers. This is the original, notarized, and recorded deed of trust for this property, purchased 7 years ago. I held up the second stack. And these are the mortgage statements for the last 84 consecutive months, paid in full, every single one, from my business account. I held the deed close to the gap, right in front of the camera lens I knew was still recording. Property legal description, Lot 4, Block 7, Highlands District, City and County of Denver, parcel ID number. I read the entire 16-digit number aloud, slowly and clearly. Dated and signed on August 14th, 2017, Grantee Alice Lawson, Grantor Mile High Properties. There is no other name on this deed. Through the gap, I saw Monica freeze, just for a half second. Her mask of maternal concern evaporated, replaced by a flash of pure, unfiltered rage. Her eyes narrowed. She had expected me to cry. She had expected me to fold. She had not expected me to have my paperwork. Behind her, down the hall near the elevators, I saw him, my father, Graham Blake. He was just standing there, hands in the pockets of his golf jacket, watching. He looked uncomfortable, like a spectator at a play he did not realize he'd bought tickets for. He was not stopping this. He was not defending me. He was just watching. That silence, his passive acceptance of the siege, hurt more than Monica's aggression. You little, Monica began, her voice dropping to a hiss. That was enough. I slammed the door shut, the solid core wood vibrating with the force. I threw the deadbolt. I heard the chain rattle as it fell. Instantly, the pounding began, a frantic, furious, two-fisted drumming that shook the hinges. Alice Lawson, you open this door right now. This is your father's property. You will respect me. Her voice was muffled, shrieking. Chase was yelling too. Something about needing his equipment and investors. I did not answer. I leaned my back against the door, my heart feeling like a trapped bird. The vibration of the pounding rattled my spine. I looked down at my phone. The red light was still on. The timer read 4 minutes and 32 seconds. The screaming and the pounding were not just noise anymore. They were the soundtrack to my evidence. I backed away from the door, saving the video file and uploading it to my secure cloud drive. My hands were trembling, but my mind was clicking into place. This was organized. The pre-filled forms, the power of attorney, the arrival with luggage. Chase checking his phone for a signal. My phone vibrated in my hand with an incoming email. My heart did not just sink. It plummeted. It felt like falling through ice. The sender was Appraisal Services from First Mountain Bank. Subject confirmation of your appraisal appointment. Dear Ms. Lawson, this email is to confirm your cash-out refinance appraisal appointment for Monday, October 10th, at 10 a.m. for the property located at... It was my address. Cash out refinance. They were not just trying to take the condo, they were trying to strip its equity. They were trying to take my money using my home as collateral. The panic that had been threatening to swallow me whole suddenly receded, replaced by a cold, sharp focus. It was the same focus I got when a client's contractor installed a load-bearing wall in the wrong place. Problem. Assessment. Solution. A criminal does not cover their tracks perfectly. They had to apply for the loan. To do that, they had to pull my credit. I opened my credit monitoring app. I paid $20 a month for the premium service. I navigated to the Recent Inquiries tab. There it was. 6 days ago. A hard inquiry from First Mountain Bank. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Who had access to my life? Who knew my social security number? Probably memorized from my old FAFSA applications my father insisted she help me with. Who knew my date of birth? My mother's maiden name. Who had the audacity to believe they were entitled to the fruits of my 7 years of hard work, of late nights drafting blueprints, of stressful client negotiations? Monica? She had not just overstepped. She had committed fraud. I looked at the door, where the pounding had finally subsided into angry, intermittent kicks. I looked at the email confirmation. I looked at the hard inquiry on my credit report. This was not a family dispute anymore. This was not a misunderstanding. I took a deep breath, the air tasting like dust and adrenaline. Alice Lawson, the interior designer, stepped aside. Alice Lawson, the victim of identity theft and attempted real estate fraud, took her place. This was a crime, and I was going to build a case. The pounding on the door had stopped, but the silence it left behind was brittle, vibrating with threat. My father and Monica were gone, for now. I stood in my entryway. The cheap, crumpled papers of their fraudulent power of attorney still scattered on my floor. I did not pick them up. I left them there as a reminder of the battlefield. My breath was shallow, my hands still buzzing with adrenaline, but my mind was a block of ice. There was no time for tears. Tears were a luxury. Action was a necessity. I picked up my phone. The bank's email was still open. I did not call the number on the email. I went to the bank's official website, found the number for their fraud and identity theft department, and dialed. The hold music was an offensive, upbeat orchestral piece. Each jaunty violin swell felt like an insult. Thank you for calling First Mountain Bank's Fraud Prevention Department. This is Philip. May I have your name, please? My name is Alice Lawson. Thank you, Ms. Lawson. How can I assist you today? I have received an email confirming a cash-out refinance appraisal for Monday at 10 a.m., I said, my voice perfectly flat. I did not apply for this loan. This is a fraudulent application. The line was quiet for a beat. Philip's tone shifted, losing its customer service sheen and becoming clipped, serious. I understand, Ms. Lawson. I am taking this very seriously. To proceed, I need to verify you are the Alice Lawson associated with this property. Can you please confirm your date of birth? I gave it to him. And the last 4 digits of your social security number? I gave them, the same numbers Monica had. And what was your address prior to your current one? I gave him the address of my old apartment in Cap Hill, the one I'd left 7 years ago. And your mother's maiden name? Hart, I said. The name felt like ash in my mouth. A piece of data Monica had stolen and weaponized. Thank you, Ms. Lawson. You have passed verification. The irony was acidic. I had to prove I was me, because someone else had successfully proven she was me. I am looking at the application now, Philip said, the sound of his keyboard clicking rapidly. It was submitted online 6 days ago. I see the hard inquiry on your credit file. This application is in the final underwriting stage, pending the appraisal on Monday. My stomach clenched. I want that application canceled immediately. I want that appraisal canceled, and I want the file frozen. Absolutely, he said. I am placing an immediate hold and flagging the application as fraudulent. I am canceling the appraisal appointment. You will not be responsible for any fees. Good. I need to know who filed it. Ms. Lawson, in cases of identity theft, we often cannot. I know who filed it. I cut him off. I am telling you, I need you to document it in the file. Another pause. Who do you allege submitted the fraudulent application? I took a breath. Saying it out loud made it real. It was the sound of a door slamming shut, a line being drawn in concrete. Monica Vale, my stepmother. Philip did not react. He just typed, Vale, V-A-L-E. Correct. Thank you. I have added that name and her relationship to you in the official fraud report. We will be placing a permanent security alert on your profile. Any future applications or attempts to access your accounts will require enhanced verbal verification using a security passcode, which we will set up now. Do you also wish to add a note regarding harassment? Yes, I said. Add a note that Monica Vale is not to be considered a trusted contact. Any attempt by her to access my information should be considered hostile and reported. Understood, Philip said. It is documented. I strongly recommend you contact all 3 credit bureaus and place a credit freeze on your files immediately. This will prevent anyone from opening new lines of credit in your name. I am doing it as we speak. I lied. It was the next thing on my list. I finished the call, set a new, complex verbal passcode, and got a case reference number. I wrote it down on a fresh legal pad. This was the start of the file. Next, the bureaus. I opened my laptop and, one by one, navigated the bureaucratic hellscapes of the 3 major credit agencies: Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. Each one required its own account, its own set of verification questions, its own process for initiating a freeze. It was tedious, designed to be frustrating, but I was meticulous. I created new, complex passwords for each. I downloaded my most recent credit reports. The hard inquiry from First Mountain Bank glared at me from all 3, a single, toxic red flag. I clicked Confirm Freeze on the 3rd site. A small, hollow sense of relief. They could not apply for more loans. The gate was closed, though the damage was already done. My phone buzzed with a text message. Not my father, not Monica. It was from Evan Park, my neighbor in 8B, the unit directly above mine. Evan was a quiet software engineer who I sometimes shared the elevator with. He was always wearing noise-canceling headphones. His text was short. Hey Alice, things sounded really intense down there this morning. I heard a lot of shouting about a garage and changing locks. My balcony is right over your entryway. I was having coffee. If you need a witness or my hallway security cam footage, just let me know. Hope you're okay. My eyes flooded with tears. It was the first time all morning. It was not a tear of sadness, but of profound, aching relief. I was not crazy. It was not a private family matter that I had imagined. It was real. It was witnessed. I wiped my face, my fingers coming away wet. I typed back, my hands now steady. Thank you, Evan. That is incredibly helpful. I may need to take you up on that. I am fine, just handling a legal matter. I saved his message. Civilian witness number 1. Now, to build the case, I was no longer in my home. I was in my office. My fear was calcifying into methodical precision. I created a new master folder on my secure cloud drive. I named it Case Reveille. Inside, I created subfolders. Folder 1 Video Audio. I uploaded the 4.5-minute video from my phone. The file name was 2025-10-08-0815, Monica Chase, Entry Threat, MP4. I sent a polite text to Evan. Evan, if you are able, could you please export the audio or video from your hallway camera from approximately 800 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. this morning? I will bring a thumb drive. He replied, already on it. 2 minutes later, Folder 2, Bank for Fraud. I saved the email from the appraisal company as a PDF. I saved the email from First Mountain Bank, confirming the fraud case number and the cancellation of the loan. I saved the PDFs of my 3 frozen credit reports. Folder 3 Property Deed. I scanned my original, notarized deed. I scanned the last 12 months of mortgage statements. I scanned my property tax bill, paid by me. I scanned my HOA dues, paid by me. I built a fortress of paper that proved this condo was mine, and mine alone. Then I went to the entryway, and finally touched the papers Monica had thrown at me. I put on latex gloves I kept under the sink for cleaning. I did not want my fingerprints obscuring hers, if it ever came to that. I carefully placed the fraudulent power of attorney and the pre-filled quitclaim deed into a large Ziploc bag. I labeled it Exhibit A and placed it in the folder. I logged into my SmartLocks admin panel. The digital footprint was clearer than I could have hoped. The logs were a perfect timeline. 8:02 a.m., failed PIN entry code. 8:02 a.m., failed PIN entry code. 8:03 a.m., failed PIN entry code. 8:04 a.m., administrator access from IP address 72.21.194.1. I Googled it. A broadband address registered to Lakewood, Colorado. 8:04 a.m., PIN code deleted. 8:05 a.m., new PIN code created. 8:15 a.m., failed PIN entry. My old code. 8:16 a.m., failed PIN entry. My old code. She had used her own phone, from her own house, to change the lock on my door. The arrogance was staggering. It was also a gift. I screenshotted the logs, complete with timestamps and IP addresses, and saved them to a new folder, Lock Tampering. My mind was racing. If she was willing to do this, what else had she done? I logged into my USPS account. My heart stopped. There, in my dashboard, was a pending request, a temporary change of address, set to begin tomorrow, October 9th. All mail for Alice Lawson was to be rerouted to my father's address in Lakewood. She was not just trying to take my home, she was trying to hijack my mail, my identity, my entire life. Luckily, because I had an online account, the system had flagged the request for online approval. It was still pending. I clicked Cancel Request so hard my fingernail clicked against the screen. I took a screenshot of the canceled request, showing the date it was filed and the address it was meant to be forwarded to. I saved it. Case fail. I sat back, my desk covered in a mosaic of my life. Weaponized, deed, bank statements, credit reports, video files, lock logs, a canceled mail forwarding request. This was not a daughter. This was a plaintiff. I made a list on my legal pad. Points of contact. First Mountain Bank, done. Fraud report filed. Credit bureaus done. Freeze active. USPS done. COA canceled. HOA. My condo board. They needed to be informed that Monica Vale was not a resident and not to be given access. Smart Lock Company. To report the unauthorized admin access. Building management. To ensure my father's master key, if he had one, was deactivated. The last name on my list was my father's, Graham Blake. My fingers hovered over my phone, the urge to call him, to scream, to cry, to ask, why was so powerful it made me dizzy? Why did you stand there? Why did you let her? I closed my eyes. I remembered his silence in the hallway. That silence was his answer. To call him would be to fall back into the family trap. It would be her word against mine. It would be a misunderstanding. He would ask me to be the bigger person, to smooth things over, to think of the family. But the family was a fiction. The crime was real. I opened my email. Not a text, not a call. Email, written, recordable, admissible. To Graham Blake. Subject future communication, Dad. Following the events of this morning, all future communication between us must be in writing via email. This is for record-keeping purposes. Any phone calls will be unanswered. Any voicemails will be deleted without being heard. I have filed a formal fraud report with First Mountain Bank regarding the fraudulent cash-out refinance application. I have also frozen my credit. Please do not attempt to contact me in person. Do not come to my home, Alice. I hit send. There was no emotion in it. It was a sterile legal boundary. No arguments, no drama, just facts and consequences. This was not a family. This was a financial crime. I would not let myself forget it again. My final act of the morning. I opened my browser and searched Denver civil litigation lawyer identity theft. I found a firm with strong reviews. They offered a free 30-minute consultation. I booked the earliest available slot. Monday, October 10th, 1:30 p.m., right after Monica's phantom appraisal was supposed to have happened. I closed my laptop. My home was quiet. The sun had moved, and the sharp lines of light were gone. I looked at the legal pad, at the video files, at the Ziploc bag. Monica wanted me in the garage. Instead, I was building a war room. The quiet of Sunday was a lie. The adrenaline from Saturday had left me with a metallic taste in my mouth, and I spent the morning triple-checking the security on every account I owned, from my email to my utilities. I changed every password to a long, randomized string of characters. I felt like I was barricading digital windows while the analog door was still vibrating from the assault. The first volley of the counterattack came precisely at noon. My phone lit up with a Google business alert, then another, and another, a new review for Hearthline Studio. I opened the app, my thumb sliding on the glass. The review was from a Karen R., 1 star. "The owner of this business is mentally unstable," it read. "I had a consultation, and she became erratic, screaming and making wild accusations. She threatened me. I am worried she's a danger to her clients. She spoke about planting a bomb in my house if I did not hire her. Avoid at all costs." A bomb. The word was so absurd, so cartoonishly villainous, that I almost laughed. But the cold dread in my gut told me this was not funny. This was Monica's handwriting. Digitally speaking, that blend of clinical diagnosis, mentally unstable, and over-the-top melodrama bomb threat was her signature. Before I could even process it, my Yelp app chimed, a new review, 1 star, from a Jenna S. "Horrible experience. This designer is completely deceptive. Took my deposit and vanished. She seems to be having some kind of breakdown. I heard she threatens people. Do not walk. Run. This woman is a con artist and emotionally unwell. Deceptive. Threatens. Emotionally unwell." A third one popped up on Google, this time from Mark T. 1 star. "Unstable and dangerous. This business is a front for something shady. The owner is a liar and a cheat. She belongs in an institution, not designing homes." In the span of 5 minutes, my 5-star rating, which I had spent years meticulously building, was in flames. My perfect score was plummeting. The attacks were clumsy, identical in their vocabulary, but effective. To a new client, I looked like a liability, a walking nightmare. I did not engage. I did not reply. I took meticulous, full-page screenshots of each review, ensuring the timestamp, the reviewer's name, and the text were all clearly visible. I saved them to the Harassment Online folder in my Casefile cloud drive. Then, I checked Facebook. I rarely used it, but I knew Chase lived there. His page was public. The top post, made about an hour ago, was a vague, self-pitying rant. So much for family. Some people would rather see their own blood homeless than give up an inch of their precious space. Thanks to my backstabbing sister. My startup is probably dead before it even started. Some people are just selfish. The comments were a wasp's nest. 10, maybe 12 relatives, aunts, cousins, people I had not seen in years. All from Monica's side of the family were piling on. "That's awful, Chase. We know you've worked so hard. She always was selfish. Remember that Christmas? Your mother and Graham have given her everything. Disgusting. What goes around comes around. Honey, she'll get hers." My stomach turned. They were painting me as the villain, the entitled princess hoarding a castle while poor. Ambitious Chase was left in the cold. The narrative was set. Monica was not just attacking my home. She was methodically poisoning my reputation, both personally and professionally. I screenshotted the post. I screenshotted every single comment, clicking to expand the threads. I saved them all, time-stamped, filed. The real-world consequences arrived almost immediately. An email from a small client, the Beckers, whose kitchen remodel I was scheduled to start measuring for on Tuesday. "Hi, Alice. Something has come up, and we are going to have to postpone the kitchen project indefinitely. We will let you know if things change." It was polite, but the timing was no coincidence. They had seen the reviews. Indefinitely meant permanently. That was $5,000 in projected income. Gone. I stared at the email. This was the goal. Not just to take my home, but to destroy my ability to pay for it, to make it impossible for me to fight back. I checked my inbox for a message from Nora, a high-value potential client I'd sent a major proposal to on Friday. We were supposed to have a call on Monday morning to finalize the contract. She had been enthusiastic, ready to sign. Now, my follow-up email from this morning sat unread, or at least unanswered. Silence. This was not a tantrum. This was a siege. They were cutting off my supply lines. I was documenting the Becker email when my phone buzzed with another message. It was Evan, my neighbor. Got the file. It's an audio-only export from the hallway cam. The video angle wasn't great, but the mic is sensitive. It's about 30 megabytes. I can put it on a drive for you. Thank you, Evan, I typed back. Can you upload it to a secure link? I am building a digital file. I will text you a link. I created a private, encrypted upload link and sent it to him. 5 minutes later, the file was sitting in my video-audio folder, Hallway Audio OC208. 3. I put on my best studio headphones and pressed play. The sound was clear, echoing slightly in the tiled hallway. I heard my own voice, distant, from behind the door, reading my parcel ID number, and then I heard them. Monica. Arrogant little. I knew she would do this. Graham. She is recording us. Chase Mom. Just use the key. You said you had the key. Monica. The chain is on, you idiot. It does not matter. We will just change the lock when she is out. Move her stuff to the garage. And she can deal with it then. She will not fight us once it is done. My father faint, weary. Monica. Maybe we should just wait. This is not... Monica. No. Graham. It is done. She cannot stop us. She thinks she is so smart. She is just a child playing house. I stopped the recording. My hands were perfectly still. Change the lock. Move her stuff to the garage. It was not a threat. It was a conspiracy. And Evan's microphone had captured it. I saved a backup copy. My focus was absolute. The next call was to my building's HOA president. I sent him a brief email with the audio file attached. Dear Mr. Henderson, I am writing to report a serious security breach and harassment incident from Saturday. My stepmother, Monica Vale, who is not a resident, attempted to forcibly enter my unit and threatened to illegally lock me out. The attached audio from a neighbor's security camera confirms this. As of this weekend, I have also received anonymous, harassing noise complaints filed against my unit. I had received the email from the HOA that morning. We have received an anonymous complaint regarding excessive noise and shouting from your unit on Saturday morning. In my email to the president, I attached the video I took from inside my apartment. As you can see from this video, the shouting was from Ms. Vale, directed at me, while she was illegally pounding on my door. I am the victim, not the perpetrator. I request that Monica Vale be barred from the premises. I hit send. Counter evidence filed. The attacks kept coming. A new email appeared in my inbox. The sender was Arthur J. Finnegan, Esquire. The subject line, Urgent quitclaim deed for property, my address. Ms. Lawson, the email began. I represent the interests of the Vale and Blake families. It is my understanding that you are illegally occupying a property designated for Mr. Chase Vale. We have been instructed to proceed with eviction if you do not sign the attached quitclaim deed and vacate the premises within 48 hours. Failure to comply will result in immediate legal action. It was almost convincing, but my paranoia was now a finely tuned instrument. I did not click the attachment. I hovered over the sender's email address. Arthur, Finnegan HTT, Google.com, search, Kua Blake Vale Law.com. I opened a new tab and searched for HTTs. Google.com, search, Qs. blakevale.com. The domain did not exist. I did a WOAS lookup. The domain had been registered 12 hours ago. Through a private proxy, it was a fake lawyer, a fake firm, a fake threat designed to scare me into signing away my home. This was clumsy, but it was also a federal crime. I did not reply. I saved the email as a PDF, including the full header information showing its origin. Then I went to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center website, the IC3. I filled out the form. I attached the fraudulent email. I detailed the attempted real estate fraud, the identity theft, the fake domain. I was reporting my stepmother to the FBI. The thought should have been horrifying. It was, instead, calming. It was the correct and logical next step. My phone rang. First Mountain Bank. It was Philip, from the fraud department. Ms. Lawson, I'm just calling to confirm that the loan application is officially closed and marked as fraudulent. The appraisal for tomorrow is canceled. I also want to confirm that we have successfully flagged the contact number associated with the application. Any calls originating from that number ending in 5028 will be automatically routed away from your accounts and to a senior security specialist. Monica's cell phone number. Thank you. Philip, I said. That is correct. I hung up and documented the call. One more bar on the cage. Just as I saved the note, a text message came through. It was my father. I had blocked his number from calling, but texts were still visible. Alice, this has gone on long enough. Your mother is very upset. This is a family matter, and we will solve it as a family. There is a mandatory meeting at my house tonight at 6 p.m. You will be here. Mandatory. You will be here. The words echoed the command and control language Monica used. This was not a request. It was an order, filtered through my father's passive-aggressive authority. He was not here to listen. He was here to manage me, to bring me back in line, to make the problem me go away. I stared at the message. The old Alice would have gone. She would have cried. She would have pleaded. She would have brought her feelings to a gunfight. That Alice was gone. I replied via email, copying the text of his message into the body. To Graham Blake, subject future communication. As I stated previously, I will not be communicating via text. I am in receipt of your summons for a mandatory meeting. I am willing to attend a meeting on the condition that it is formally documented. My witness, Evan Park, will attend with me to take official minutes. I will also be bringing hard copy documentation of the fraud, identity theft, and harassment that has occurred. Please confirm via email if you agree to these terms. If I do not receive written confirmation, I will consider the meeting canceled and a bad faith attempt at intimidation. I hit send. The line was drawn. No more ambushes. No more family discussions. From now on, we used legal rules. I stood up and walked to my office printer. The adrenaline was back, but it was cold now. Purposeful. I pulled 3 new 2-inch binders from the shelf. White, clean, sterile. I printed everything. The bank fraud report, the credit freezes, the canceled mail forwarding, the HOA complaint, the screenshots of the 1-star reviews, the screenshots of Chase's Facebook post and the family's comments, the fake lawyer email and the IC3 report, the audio file transcript from Evan, my email exchange with my father. I pulled out my 3-hole punch. The chunk of the machine cutting through the paper was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. I organized them. Binder 1, tabbed in red, bank property fraud. It held the deed, the mortgage statements, the bank case file, the credit reports, the smart lock logs, the USPS request. Binder 2, tabbed in blue, harassment defamation. It held the Yelp reviews, the Google reviews, the Facebook posts, the fake lawyer email, the IC3 complaint, the HOA report. Binder 3, tabbed in black, evidence communication. It held the video file logs, the transcript of Evan's audio, and every email I had sent and received. I weighed each binder in my hand. They were heavy, solid, real. They were my shield and my sword. I placed them in a row on my desk, a perfect white line of defense. I looked around my apartment. The sun was setting. casting a warm, amber light on the walls I had painted, the furniture I had chosen, the life I had built. This was my space, my home. Monica had offered me the garage. She had tried to cast me out, to reduce me to someone who sleeps among boxes and oil stains. But I was not in a garage. I was in my fortress, and I was not going to surrender. My father's reply to my email never came. Instead, at 5:50 p.m. on Sunday evening, my phone buzzed with a text from him. "We are waiting." It was a summons. Stripped of all pretense, the mandatory meeting was still mandatory. He had ignored my terms. He had ignored my request for witnesses. For a documented meeting, he was defaulting to the old hierarchy. He was the father, I was the child, and I was to obey. I picked up the heavy tote bag. The 3 binders, my paper armor, were inside. I had not agreed to his terms, but I was not going to miss this. This was not a meeting, it was an arraignment. And I was not the one on trial. The 40-minute drive from my condo in Denver to the sprawling, silent suburb of Lakewood was a descent. The city's vibrant, chaotic energy faded, replaced by wide, empty streets and identical beige houses, each with a perfect, chemically treated lawn. Theirs was one of the largest, a 5,000-square-foot monument to engineered stone and hollow grandeur. As I pulled up, I saw that I had been preemptively relegated. Monica's white SUV and Chase's obnoxious, lifted pickup truck, a vehicle that had never hauled anything heavier than his ego, were parked in the driveway, blocking access to the 2 main garage bays. The only spot left was on the asphalt, directly in front of the 3rd bay, the garage. I turned off the engine and sat in the silence, staring at the painted metal door. This was it. This was the place she had assigned me, the symbolic dumping ground. I could almost smell it from here, the faint, acrid scent of old fertilizer, the thick smell of motor oil, the musty odor of things stored and forgotten. This was her vision for my life, demoted, auxiliary, a temporary resident in a space designed for junk. "You can sleep in the garage." It was the physical manifestation of her opinion of me. I was not family. I was clutter. I slung the heavy tote bag over my shoulder, the corners of the binders digging into my hip. I walked up the manicured stone pathway and rang the doorbell. My father opened it. He looked tired, his face etched with a discomfort he wore like a poorly fitted suit. His reading glasses were perched on his thinning hair. "Alice," he said. His voice was low, as if he were afraid to be overheard in his own home. He had been expecting the version of me that cried, that pleaded. He was not prepared for the woman who stood on his porch. I said nothing. I walked past him. The house was silent, the air thick and still. It smelled of synthetic vanilla potpourri and the sharp, sterile scent of Monica's lemon floor polish. It was the smell of a showroom, not a home. They were in the dining room. Of course, it was Monica's stage. The long, dark mahogany table, polished to a mirror gloss, was her preferred setting for ambushes and family tribunals. The high-backed chairs were like thrones. A heavy wrought iron chandelier hung above, casting sharp, accusatory shadows on the table. This was not a dining room. It was a courtroom. Monica sat at the far end, her back ramrod straight. She was wearing an expensive cream-colored cardigan, a deliberate costume of soft maternal innocence. She radiated a calm, icy tension. To her left, Chase was slumped in his chair, his body angled away from the table, his entire focus absorbed by his phone. He did not look up when I entered. He looked like a teenager waiting for his mother to finish an embarrassing errand, not a man petitioning for a 6-figure property. My father, Graham, took his place at the head of the table, the seat of patriarchal power he had long since abdicated. He fumbled with his glasses, placing them on his nose. He cleared his throat. "Alice, thank you for coming," he began, his voice straining for a tone of reasonable authority, the voice of the elder. "Your mother and I, we feel this has all just been a terrible misunderstanding. We only want what is best for this family, and we feel that." I did not let him finish. I walked to the table, to the empty seat opposite my father. I lifted the heavy tote bag. The only sound in the polished, silent room was the sound of my response. Thud. The first white binder, 2 inches thick, landed on the mirror-bright table in front of Monica. Thud. The second binder hit the wood in front of Chase. Thud. The third, identical binder landed squarely in front of my father. The sound was obscene in the quiet. It was the sound of evidence, the sound of fact. All 3 of them stared at the white binders. Graham stopped speaking, his mouth slightly open. Chase finally looked up from his phone, his expression one of pure annoyance. "What is this?" Monica asked, her voice tight, dripping with disdain. "Is this your portfolio?" "Alice, we are not here to discuss your little projects." I ignored her. I stood over the table. I reached for Monica's binder. I pulled the cover open. The heavy 3-ring mechanism snapped open with a sharp, metallic clack. I flipped past the cover page. I turned to the first red tab, labeled Fraud. I pulled out the top sheet. It was the printed email from First Mountain Bank, the one confirming the cash-out refinance appraisal for Monday at 10 a.m. I slid it across the table so it was directly in front of her. I watched her face. The mask of suburban elegance dissolved. The color drained from her cheeks, leaving behind a pale, papery gray. Her eyes, wide with shock, darted from the paper to my face. Her hand, the one heavy with her wedding ring, flew out and slammed the binder shut. "You wouldn't dare," she whispered. The voice was no longer condescending. It was thin, sharp, and terrified. I moved to Chase. He was looking at me now, a stupid, arrogant sneer on his face. "Seriously, Alice, what is your problem? I have investor calls to—" I opened his binder. Clack. I turned to the first blue tab, labeled Defamation. I slid out the first screenshot, his Facebook post. "So much for family, my backstabbing sister." His own self-pitying words stared back at him. I slid the next page on top of it, the cascade of comments from Monica's relatives, calling me selfish, disgusting. His sneer vanished. His mouth went slack. He looked, for the first time, like a man who had been caught. His thumb, which had been hovering over his phone, froze midair. He did not speak. Finally, I moved to my father. He was looking at his binder with a kind of weary dread, as if it were an explosive device. "Alice, please," he said, his voice pleading. "This is not the way. This is not necessary." I opened his binder. Clack. I turned to the first black tab, labeled Deed. I placed the original, notarized, and recorded deed of trust for my property directly in front of him. I put my finger on the signature line. He put his reading glasses on properly. He leaned in, the light from the chandelier glinting off the lenses. He read the entire document, his lips moving silently. He was searching. I knew exactly what he was searching for. He was searching for his own name. He was searching for a clause, a loophole, a legal filament that tied this property to him, that made him the benefactor and me the tenant. He found nothing, only my name, Alice Lawson, grantee, 7 years of payments, 7 years of my life. He looked up at me, his face ashen. I was not finished. I returned to Monica's binder. I flipped the page. "This is the hard inquiry on my credit report, pulled 6 days ago by First Mountain Bank." I flipped the page again. "These are the logs from my smart lock. The administrative access and PIN change at 8:04 a.m. Saturday was executed from an IP address. That IP address is registered to this house, your house." I flipped the page again. "This is the canceled USPS temporary change of address request, filed online, rerouting all of my mail to this address." My father's head snapped toward his wife. "Monica," he whispered, his voice thin with disbelief. "You tried to change her mail." "I was trying to help," Monica shrieked, her voice cracking, the facade of calm shattering into 1,000 pieces. "She is disorganized. I was consolidating her paperwork. She is irresponsible." The refinance application is canceled, I said, my voice cutting through her lies like a scalpel. It was cold, flat, and devoid of emotion. The loan is dead. First Mountain Bank has flagged the application as high-risk fraud. They have your name and your phone number, Monica. A permanent security alert is now on all my accounts. You, Monica gasped, her hand flying to her throat. She looked at my father for help, but he was staring at the papers. The fake lawyer email, I continued, was reported to the FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center. The domain was registered 12 hours before I received the threat. Chase sank so low in his chair he was almost under the table. This is not a misunderstanding, I stated, my eyes locked on my father. This is a coordinated criminal attempt to commit identity theft and real estate fraud. How dare you? Monica finally exploded, slamming her hands on the table and rising from her chair. The cream cardigan was no longer innocent. It was the uniform of a zealot. After everything we have done for you, this house, your education, the life you have. This is the thanks we get. You owe us. That apartment should be for Chase. He is a man. He is building a future. You are just a woman. You will get married. You will have babies. And you will leave it anyway. It is wasted on you. The air vibrated with the poison. This was the truth, the medieval, misogynistic rot at the center of her entire worldview. My success was a temporary amusement. My life was disposable. Her son's vague potential would always outweigh my reality. My father winced. He looked away, ashamed, but he said nothing to stop her. I did not raise my voice. I did not defend my choices. I did not argue. I simply turned to the next tab in my father's binder. I had prepared for this. I pushed the paper in front of him. I am not going to argue about my life, I said, my voice still chillingly calm. But since you both seem unclear on the law, I will read it for you. My voice was steady, like a newscaster reading a report. Under Colorado Revised Statute, Title 18, Article 5, Section 901, a person commits identity theft if they knowingly use the personal identifying information of another person without permission or lawful authority in connection with any fraud or other unlawful purpose. It is a Class 4 felony. I let the word hang in the silent room. Felony. This was the moment. The family court was adjourned. The real court had entered the room. My father, Graham, slowly turned his head and looked at his wife. His face was a mask of dawning, sickening horror. He was not looking at the woman he loved. He was looking at a legal and financial liability. He looked at Chase, his co-conspirator, who was pale and sweating. For the first time in my entire adult life, my father did not defend them. He did not say, "Alice, be nice." He did not say, "She is your mother." He said nothing. His silence was the loudest sound in the room. It was my victory. "This meeting is over," I announced. I began to close the binders. The sound of the rings snapping shut was the punctuation. Snap, snap, snap. I stacked the 3 binders and slid them back into my tote bag. "This is your first and only warning," I said, looking at all 3 of them. "Stay away from my home. Stay away from Hearthline Studio. Stay away from my clients. If any of you, or any agent acting on your behalf, contacts me, harasses me, or comes within 100 feet of my property, I will file for an immediate restraining order for trespassing and stalking." I turned and walked out of the room. I did not run. I did not look back. I heard my father call my name. Once. "Alice!" It was a weak, hollow sound, already defeated. I walked out the front door, into the crisp October air. I walked down the stone path, past the 3-car garage. It was just a building, a box for holding cars and lawnmowers. It had no power over me. It was not my place. I drove home, the binders heavy on the passenger seat. I felt exhausted, but I felt light. I had faced them in their territory, on their terms, and I had won. That night, I was back in my condo. The locks had been changed, again, by a bonded locksmith. the bill for which was already filed in my binder. I was drinking mint tea when my phone chimed. A new Google alert, 1 star, from a Susan P. I hired Hearthline Studio, and the owner stole my jewelry. She is a thief and a compulsive liar. The police are being called. I stared at the screen. The assault on the dining room table had failed. Monica was starting phase 2. The war was not over. The review from Susan P., the one accusing me of grand larceny, was the opening salvo of phase 2. The next 7 days were a controlled freefall. The digital assault that began on Sunday became a relentless hailstorm. Monica's strategy was clear: if she could not take my home through fraud, she would bankrupt me with libel. The Becker cancellation, my small kitchen project, was the first domino. It was followed by 2 more within 48 hours. A bathroom remodel. I had been sourcing tile for a polite, curt email. "We've decided to go in a different direction." A lucrative consultation for a downtown loft development, a cold voicemail. "We don't feel comfortable proceeding at this time." 3 contracts, all evaporated. 3 small, vital streams of income for Hearthline Studio. Gone. That was roughly $12,000 in projected work for the next quarter. Vanished. The 1-star reviews were working. Monica's poison was potent and fast-acting. I did not have time to panic. I had to triage. I sat at my desk, the 3 binders from the family meeting open before me, and I began to fight back not as a daughter, but as a business owner. My first move was to address the clients who were still on the fence. I drafted a professional, concise email. It was the hardest email I have ever had to write. "Dear client," it began. "You may have recently seen a series of malicious 1-star reviews posted publicly about my studio. I want to be transparent. These reviews are part of a coordinated, fraudulent harassment campaign originating from a private legal dispute. They are entirely false. The person coordinating this has also filed fraudulent loan applications in my name, which I am handling with the authorities." I did not mention family. I did not mention stepmother. I kept it sterile. My work and my reputation are everything to me. I have attached my full portfolio, a list of professional references, and my official business registration with the state of Colorado. I understand this is an unusual situation, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have. I sent this letter to every prospective client in my pipeline. That included Nora, the high-value client with the Cherry Creek condo, who had gone completely silent. The response was a 50-50 split. Half, including Nora, never replied. The silence was its own kind of answer, a quiet confirmation that the poison had worked, but the other half did. One replied, "Alice, thank you for the transparency. This is awful. We saw those reviews, and they looked suspicious. Let's schedule the call for next week as planned." Another wrote, "We evaluate based on the work, not the drama. Your portfolio is excellent. It was not a victory, but it was not a rout. I was holding the line. My business was hemorrhaging. I needed 2 things: knowledge and money. I started with knowledge. I researched Colorado state law. I was a designer, not a lawyer, and I was drowning in terms I did not understand. I found a free legal aid workshop hosted by the city for small business owners. The title was Perfect Defamation, Libel, and Tortious Interference. It was the following Monday. I registered immediately. I needed to know the specific names of the weapons being used against me. Next, I addressed the contamination of my brand. Yelp and Google were slow to respond to my request to remove the fraudulent reviews. Their automated systems favored the attacker. So, I built a new world. I bought a secondary domain name. Something clean, https Google.com, search Q-Wash Hearthline Designs, Denver.com. I spent 48 hours, fueled by caffeine and cold fury, building a sleek, simple microsite. It was an emergency shelter for my reputation. I did not link to my social media. I did not link to Yelp. I uploaded my highest resolution case studies. I uploaded screenshots of the real 5-star testimonials I had saved from clients over the past 7 years. I was creating my own, sterile, protected source of truth. My consultation with the lawyer, Ava Montrose, was on Monday afternoon. Her office was in a sleek glass tower downtown. It was minimalist, clean, and commanded a stunning view of the mountains. Ava was nothing like the fake Arthur J. Finnegan. She was sharp, precise, and wore a minimalist black suit. She looked like she could cut glass with her voice. I did not cry. I did not waste her time with the family drama, the betrayal, the pain. I walked in, placed my 3 white binders on her polished conference table, and sat down. "Good afternoon, Ms. Montrose," I said. "I am the victim of attempted real estate fraud, identity theft, and a targeted online defamation campaign. Here is my evidence." She listened, her face impassive, as I walked her through the timeline. I spoke for 30 minutes, moving from the locked door, to the bank fraud, to the fake lawyer, to the review bombing. Her eyes scanned the tabs. She flipped through the bank fraud report. She read the transcript of Evan's audio. She studied the screenshots of Chase's Facebook post. When I finished, I sat back. She looked up, a small, assessing smile on her face. "Well, Ms. Lawson," she said, her voice dry, "you have done 90% of my job for me. Most clients walk in here with tears and receipts in a shoebox. You brought me a fully admissible case." "So we sue?" I asked, my heart hammering. "Not yet," Ava said, tapping the harassment binder. "Litigation is expensive, it is slow, and it is public. Judges are unpredictable, especially with family matters. Monica wants you to sue. She is counting on it. She wants a dramatic, costly fight where she can cry on the stand and play the victim." Ava leaned forward, her eyes locking onto mine. "Our strategy is leverage. We use this." She tapped the binders. "To force a settlement, we do not go to court. We bring the court to them. We make it so toxic and so legally dangerous for them not to comply that they will sign anything we put in front of them to make it go away. We aim for a cease and desist, a public retraction, and financial damages, all without ever seeing a judge." It was the most logical, ruthless, and beautiful thing I had ever heard. "You are hired," I said. Ava's first move was to formalize my support system. She drafted a legal affidavit for Evan. My quiet, headphone-wearing neighbor became my first official ally. He read the statement. Ava's office prepared a dry, factual account of the threats he overheard. "Change the lock. Move her stuff to the garage." He signed it in front of a notary. "Happy to help. Alice," he said, handing the pen back. "Bullies suck." My complaints to the HOA and the building management, now reinforced by a letter from Ava's firm, were acted upon immediately. The building manager confirmed that Monica Vale and Chase Vale were not residents and had been flagged in their system. Any attempt by them to access the building, even as a guest of my father, would be treated as trespassing, and the police would be called. The HOA board, after reviewing my audio and video evidence, issued a building-wide update, effective immediately. All anonymous complaints regarding noise or residents' conduct would require verifiable audio or video evidence to be acted upon. Monica's anonymous back channels were being sealed, one by one, but I was still bleeding money. The lost contracts hurt. On Thursday evening, I found a possible lifeline, the Denver Small Business Resilience Grant. It was a fund designed for businesses impacted by extraordinary circumstances outside their control. I figured a coordinated sabotage campaign by a stepmother committing identity theft qualified. The deadline was Friday. At midnight, I spent 6 hours writing the application. I detailed the defamation campaign and its direct, quantifiable impact on my revenue. I attached the screenshots of the lost contracts. I attached the screenshots of the fake, one-star reviews. I described it not as a family problem, but as a tortious interference with my business. I hit submit at 11:59 p.m. I was functioning. I was methodical, but the cost was high. The terror and the rage were still there, simmering just below the surface. They threatened to boil over every time a new one-star review appeared. I had to control it. So, I made a rule. At 5 p.m. every day, I would go into my office, close the door, and set a timer on my phone for 5 minutes. For those 5 minutes, I let myself feel it. I let myself cry. I let my hands shake. I let myself feel the visceral grief of my father's betrayal and the white-hot, acidic fury at Monica's entitlement. I let myself mourn the clients I had lost and the reputation I had spent years building. When the timer chimed, I was done. I would stand up, walk to the bathroom, and wash my face with cold water. Then I would go to the kitchen, make a cup of mint tea, and get back to my to-do list. It was a controlled demolition of my emotions, a free fall with a parachute I packed myself, and every night, just before bed. I did one other thing. I would open my bedroom window, look out over the city lights toward the dark, quiet mass of the mountains, and take a picture of the Denver sky. A different sky every night, sometimes clear and starry, sometimes bruised with purple clouds. It was my anchor, a small daily act of logging my existence, a reminder that my world was larger than their small, ugly, and fabricated attacks. The storm was not over, but a small light appeared near the end of the week. A new inquiry in my inbox, a young couple from the Highlands. "Dear Alice," their email read, "we saw the bizarre, negative reviews, and then we found your new website with the case studies. Frankly, we trust the work." Yes. "The photos of the Berkeley bungalow kitchen are exactly what we want. Are you available for a consultation?" We met for coffee. They were young, kind, and excited. They signed the contract on the spot. It was not a huge project. It was just a kitchen remodel. But it was enough. It was enough to cover the mortgage for 2 more months. It was enough to pay Ava's retainer. It was enough to keep the lights on. It was proof that my reputation, the real one, the one built on 7 years of sweat and good work, was stronger than Monica's lies. I used a small piece of the advance to buy a new plant for my windowsill. A small, stubborn pot of mint, I learned later, from a distant cousin who had finally grown a conscience and called me. That Monica had driven by my building that week. She had not tried to get in. The warnings from the HOA and Ava's letter had clearly spooked her. She just sat in her car, parked across the street. She sat there for 10 minutes, watching. She would have seen my lights on, and she would have seen, sitting right on my windowsill, visible from the street, that new, bright green pot of mint. It was a small, fragile thing, but it was alive. It was a sign that the occupant of this home was not packing. She was putting down new roots. The new kitchen contract from the young couple was a lifeline, but it was not a sustainable business model. It was a single payment, a temporary patch on a gushing wound. Monica's online war had done its job. It had made me radioactive to large, high-budget clients who relied on public reviews. The wait-and-see approach was not enough. Defending myself was not enough. I had to change the game. I was no longer just fighting for my home. I was fighting for my livelihood. And to do that, I had to be smarter, faster, and more creative than my attacker. My first move was to address the cash flow. Big projects meant long timelines and big, slow payments. I needed quick, decisive wins. I needed volume. I spent an evening brainstorming and launched a new service package on my microsite, the One-Day Refresh. It was a targeted, 4-figure design intervention for a flat fee. I would come into a client's home for 8 hours and completely rework one space, rearranging furniture, styling shelves, choosing new paint colors, and creating a precise shopping list for any new items. It was small budget, low risk, and high impact. It was designed for people who were afraid of long contracts but craved immediate results. More importantly, it was designed to generate a rapid influx of new, positive reviews that could start to bury Monica's fakes. To market this, I launched the Hearthline Studio Weekly newsletter. I did not mention the drama. I did not allude to the harassment. I gave away my expertise for free. 3 ways to use light to make a small room feel big. The 5 best paint colors for Colorado light. Why your sofa is in the wrong place. I was reestablishing my voice as an authority, a professional. It was clean, useful, and completely sterile of any personal conflict. The kitchen project for the young couple was small, but I treated it like a showpiece. I knew I could not handle the labor and the design work simultaneously, not while fighting a legal battle. I needed to leverage. I called a local independent carpenter I respected, a woman named Maria Sanchez. "Maria," I said, "I have a small kitchen job. I want to hire you to run the install. Completely hands-off for me. I will provide the design, the full spec book, and the materials. You manage the work. I will pay you a premium for your time." She agreed. It cut into my margin, deeply, but it freed me up for 10 crucial hours. It was a trade. I was buying time. With that time, I did something I had never done before. I documented the process. I took my phone and filmed the before of that dated, cramped kitchen, the peeling linoleum, the dark, 30-year-old oak cabinets. Then, I filmed the process, Maria's team working, the new tile going in, and finally, I filmed the after, the bright, airy space, the new white cabinets, the sleek quartz, the clever storage. I spent an evening editing it on my phone. I cut it down to a 60-second reel. I set it to an upbeat, instrumental track. I showed the transformation, the joy on the clients' faces. I posted it to my studio's dormant Instagram account, tagged it with local Denver hashtags, and went to bed, expecting nothing. I woke up to my phone vibrating off the nightstand. The reel was exploding. It had 40,000 views, local views, Denver area homeowners, real estate agents, other designers. It was being shared, commented on, saved. My new microsite, which I had linked in the bio, had 2,000 new visitors. The one-day refresh package had 3 new inquiries. The newsletter had 500 new subscribers. In 60 seconds, I had done more to counteract Monica's libel than I had in 2 weeks of desperate, defensive explanations. I had not argued with her. I had simply shown my work. The truth, it turned out, was a much better weapon than a rebuttal. My business practices had to change, too. Monica's reviews all screamed deceptive and liar. I would become radically transparent. I completely redesigned my quoting structure. No more bundled fees. My new proposals were itemized down to the dollar. Design services X hours at X dollars per hour. Materials sourcing X hours. Project management fee X%. It was more work, but it was bulletproof. It left no room for accusations. It built trust from the first document. The legal fight continued in the background, a low-grade hum beneath the noise of my rebuilding. Ava Montrose was a machine. She finalized the demand letter packet. It was a work of art, a masterpiece of meticulously organized evidence. It included the notarized affidavit from Evan, the official fraud report from First Mountain Bank, the high-resolution screenshots of the defamatory reviews, the linguistic analysis of Monica's unique repetitive phrasing, unstable, threat, deceptive, and the audio file from the hallway. It was a loaded gun, polished and waiting. Just as Ava finished the packet, a formal letter arrived for me, on heavy bank letterhead. It was from First Mountain Bank. It was not an email. It was a physical, signed document. Dear Ms. Lawson, this letter is to confirm that the fraudulent loan application case number associated with your profile has been permanently closed. An internal investigation has been completed. A permanent security flag has been placed on your file. Furthermore, the name Monica Vale and the telephone number her number have been added to our internal high-risk security alert database. I made a copy for Ava. I put the original in the bank fraud binder. It was another brick in the wall. The real success had an unexpected ripple effect. I received an email from an executive at Harbor Pine Developments, one of the biggest luxury builders in the state. Ms. Lawson, we saw the kitchen video you posted. Impressive work. We also reviewed your secondary website. We are looking for a designer for our new showroom build-out in Lohi. Are you available to meet? I stared at the email. Harbor Pine. This was not a kitchen remodel. This was a six-figure contract. They had not seen the Yelp reviews, or if they had seen the real and the microsite first, and the work had outweighed the noise. That same day, Evan Park knocked on my door. "Hey, Alice," he said, holding a paper coffee cup. I was just at my local coffee shop. The Grind, the owner, Tasha, was complaining about the acoustics and the terrible layout. I showed her your Instagram reel. He smiled. "She wants you to call her. She needs a designer who understands privacy and workflow." A new project, a commercial project. My network was starting to build a firewall around me. Slowly, painfully. I was making progress on the reviews. I sent notarized packets of evidence to Google and Yelp's legal departments, citing the bank fraud report and the fake lawyer email. It was not a simple report click. It was a formal legal challenge, one by one. Two of the most egregious reviews, the bomb threat and the stole my jewelry, vanished. My rating, which had bottomed out at a catastrophic 1.7, crept up to a still terrible 2.9. It was not fixed, but it was no longer a death sentence. It was a sign of life. Of course, Monica noticed. New fake accounts appeared. James P. Sarah W. The names were different, but the language was identical. The same cadence, the same typos, the same obsession with my mental state. Ava's team just added them to the file, to the linguistic comparison chart, labeling it pattern of malicious conduct. Monica was no longer just a liar. She was a predictable one. Then, the email came, not from a client, not from a lawyer. It was from the Denver Small Business Week. "Dear Ms. Lawson, we were incredibly moved by your grant application. The story of your resilience in the face of a targeted online interference campaign is remarkable. We would be honored if you would consider speaking on our Brand Resilience panel. We believe your story of rebuilding your reputation after an online crisis would be invaluable to other business owners." I would be on a stage, with a microphone, sharing my story, not as a victim, but as an expert. That night, my phone buzzed with a text. My father. It was the first time he had reached out since the disastrous meeting show. He wrote, "Are you okay?" The three simple words, in our native language, were a calculated blow. It was an attempt to bypass the legal boundaries, to pull me back into the emotional quicksand of family, to make me the daughter again. I stared at the text. My fingers hovered, wanting to type 1,000 things. "No, I am not okay. Your wife tried to ruin my life, and you watched. I did not. I opened my browser, copied the link to the latest Hearthline Studio weekly newsletter, the one about the 3 best Grega paint colors for 2025. I pasted the link into the text message. I added no other words. I hit send. It was the coldest, most complete answer I could give. I am not your child to be managed. I am a business, and my business is fine. I put my phone down. I watered my plants. The new pathos vine I had bought was draping off the bookshelf. The mint on the windowsill was thriving. I switched on the new, warm yellow reading lamp I had placed in the corner, the one that cast a soft, healing glow. My apartment was no longer a fortress. It was starting to feel like a home again. The demand letter Ava Montrose sent was not a letter. It was a bomb. It was 12 pages long, printed on heavy, watermarked bond paper, and sent via certified mail. Return receipt requested, to both Monica Vale and Chase Vale at my father's address. Ava, ever the strategist, sent digital copies via email as well, creating an instantaneous, verifiable timestamp. The letter was a masterpiece of controlled fury. It did not plead. It did not argue. It simply listed the facts and the potential consequences. It was divided into 4 sections. It listed the potential civil and criminal charges, identity theft, citing the Colorado revised statute I had read in their dining room, attempted real estate fraud, defamation per se, libel, and tortious interference with business. Ava had attached a summarized exhibit list. Exhibit A audio transcript from Evan Park, quoting Monica's "move her stuff to the garage" line. Exhibit B, log files from the smart lock, showing the administrative access from their IP address. Exhibit C, screenshots of the fraudulent Yelp, Google, and Facebook comments, cross-referenced with the linguistic analysis of Monica's unique, repeated phrasing. Exhibit D, the formal report from First Mountain Bank, confirming the fraudulent loan application tied to her contact information. The demands were not a request. They were terms of surrender. 1. An immediate and permanent cease and desist from all contact with me, my business, my clients, and my neighbors. 2. The immediate, permanent removal of all defamatory content from all online platforms. 3. A formal, public retraction and apology to be posted under their real names on all platforms where the original defamation occurred. 4. Monetary damages to be paid to Hearthline Studio within 30 days for the 3 lost contracts, the cost of the brand reputation repair, and my full legal fees to date. The final sentence was ice cold. If you fail to meet these terms in full by the specified deadline, we are instructed by our client to file the attached complaint with the Denver District Court without further notice. Ava had sent a third copy, via courier, to Graham Blake's personal estate lawyer. It was a professional courtesy that served as a strategic checkmate. My father could no longer claim ignorance. He could no longer pretend this was a simple family matter. His own attorney was now reading the evidence of his wife's felonies. The reactions were immediate and telling. Monica's reply came within an hour, an email, naturally. She did not send it to Ava. She sent it directly to me, violating the primary rule of legal engagement. It was a stream of consciousness tirade, forwarded immediately to Ava without reply. It was filled with capital letters, accusations of betrayal, threats that she would be the one to sue me, that she would destroy me and tell everyone what you are. It was panicked, sloppy, and self-incriminating. Ava's reply to her, copying me, was a masterpiece of cold, corporate brevity. It was less than 50 words. Ms. Vale, we are in receipt of your email to our client. This is a violation of the terms set forth in our letter. All future communications regarding this matter must be directed to this firm. Any attempt to contact Ms. Lawson directly will be considered an act of harassment and will be added to our legal claim. We await your counsel's formal response. A wall of steel. Chase took 48 hours. He, too, tried to bypass the lawyers, but he was weaker, more afraid. He did not email. He sent a direct message to my Hearthline Studio Instagram account. Hey Alice, this is crazy. Ava Montrose, seriously. Mom is just stressed. She does not mean any of it. Can't we just handle this like a family? This is going to ruin me. Let's make a deal. Just us. It was a pathetic attempt to find the old dynamic, to appeal to the big sister he had never treated with respect. He was not sorry for the crime. He was sorry he had been caught. I did not reply. I took a screenshot of the message. I forwarded it to Ava. My only reply was to block him on all platforms. Everything, as I had promised myself, would go through legal. The next phase of Ava's strategy began when 2 separate institutions reached out to me. The bank called first. It was not Philip from fraud, but a new woman from their internal resolutions department. They had received Ava's official notice. Ms. Lawson, she said, her voice formal. In light of the comprehensive fraud report and the evidence of identity theft, the bank would like to schedule an internal mediation. This is not to determine fault, but to formally close the file and document the steps we have taken, and to hear a statement from you for our records. 2 days later, the HOA emailed, Mr. Henderson, Alice, in light of the official complaint from your attorney and the ongoing anonymous reports which have, by the way, increased in the last week, the board is scheduling a formal hearing. We are inviting both you and Ms. Vale to present your sides so we can make a final ruling on building access and harassment. I called Ava, slightly panicked at the idea of 2 separate showdowns. I have to face them twice, once for the bank, once for the HOA. No, Ava said. Her voice was sharp, excited. This is not a problem. This is perfect. It's an opportunity. We do not do 2 meetings. We do 1 week. We concentrate the evidence. We build a narrative. The strategy she laid out was brilliant. We will schedule the bank meeting for Tuesday morning, she said. We will schedule the HOA hearing for Tuesday afternoon. We will go to the bank with our evidence, and they will validate our fraud claim. We will then get an official copy of their findings. Then, her voice sharpened, we will walk into that HOA meeting, not just with our evidence, but with the official ruling from a multi-billion-dollar financial institution. We will use the bank's findings as the gavel for the HOA. We will create an echo chamber of consequence. By the end of the day, they will have nowhere left to hide. My role was to prepare the presentation. I poured all my anxiety and anger into Keynote. I created a 12-page slide deck. It was my Hearthline Studio precision, my eye for narrative and flow, applied to my own destruction and recovery. Slide 1, the timeline, a clean, clear infographic. Slide 2, the attempted fraud, the bank application, the IP log. Slide 3, the audio evidence, the direct quotes from Evan's affidavit. Slide 4, the defamation. Screenshots of the reviews. Slide 5, the linguistic links, a side-by-side comparison of Monica's known emails and the anonymous reviews, with her pet phrases, emotionally unstable, deceptive, liar highlighted in red. Slide 6, the business impact, a graph showing my revenue drop, the list of the 3 canceled contracts. Evan, my rock, agreed to be there for the HOA meeting. He practiced his statement with me over coffee. He would not be emotional. He would not offer opinions. He would be a simple recorder. I heard Ms. Vale say she would change the lock. I heard her say she would move the items to the garage. 3 minutes, just the facts. We learned through the family grapevine a cousin who finally texted me, I am so sorry. Alice, I had no idea. That Monica was desperately trying to rally support. She called her sisters, her bridge club friends, her cousins. She wanted character witnesses for the HOA meeting. But the bomb Ava had sent to my father's lawyer had done its work. The family was spooked. The word felony was not something they wanted to be associated with. Most of them, the same people who had piled on Chase's Facebook post, suddenly had conflicts. They offered prayers and hoped it all worked out, but refused to get involved. Monica, for the first time, was finding herself isolated. My father's response was the most cowardly and the most telling. A wire transfer notification appeared in my email, $5,000. The memo line, old tuition money. It was not a phone call. It was not an apology. It was blood money. It was his attempt to buy his way out of the moral wreckage, to quiet his conscience, to reduce this whole criminal conspiracy to a simple, transactional debt that he could pay off. He was trying to buy my silence, to re-establish himself as the benefactor. I stared at the notification for a full minute. The old Alice would have accepted it, seeing it as a twisted form of apology. I opened my banking app. I clicked Return Transfer. I added a memo. I am not selling my boundaries. The money was back in his account within an hour. That night, the night before the Tuesday meetings. The adrenaline was gone. The fury was gone. I was just ready. The preparation was complete. The binders were stacked by my door. The slide deck was loaded onto a thumb drive. I went to bed at 10 p.m., and for the first time in 3 weeks, since the morning I woke up to access denied, I slept, a deep, heavy, dreamless sleep. I woke up before my alarm at 6 a.m. I felt calm. The air was cold. The sky a pale, pre-dawn gray. I made coffee. I showered and put on my version of armor, a sharp black blazer, a simple silk shell, and dark gray trousers. I was ready, but I had an hour to spare. I put on my coat and walked out into the quiet morning. I went to the corner bodega, the one that always had fresh flowers. I bought a large, ridiculous, bright yellow bunch of sunflowers. I brought them home and placed them in a tall glass vase on my dining table. They were an absurd, defiant splash of color in my quiet, organized apartment. They were a promise to myself that my home was mine, and that after the battle, I would fill it with light. Not just binders of evidence. The First Mountain Bank Tower was a column of cold, reflective glass. The 10th floor conference room, where the internal mediation was held, was designed to be intimidating. It was a box of frosted glass and brushed steel, smelling sharply of new carpet, printer toner, an industrial-strength window cleaner. The air conditioning was Arctic, blowing a steady, icy stream from a vent directly overhead. It was a room built for uncomfortable, high-stakes conversations. Ava and I arrived 10 minutes early. We were a united front. She was in her sharp black suit, a leather portfolio under her arm. I was in my black blazer, my own leather tote containing a laptop, a notebook, and the thumb drive. The bank's representatives were already there. A woman in a severe gray suit, who introduced herself as Ms. Davies from the Resolutions Department, and a man named Philip, the same Philip I had spoken to from the Fraud Department. He gave me a brief, sympathetic nod. They sat at the middle of the long, polished table. Ava and I sat on their side, a physical alignment. We were the team of reason. Then, the other side arrived. They were a fractured, nervous wreck. Monica came in first, her face pale and tight, her eyes darting everywhere but at me. She was wearing a loud, patterned silk blouse, an attempt at authority that just looked gaudy. Chase shuffled in behind her, his head down, his gaze fixed on his phone, which he clutched in a white-knuckled grip. He looked like he had not slept in a week. Behind them was their lawyer. Ava had briefed me on him after he'd sent a brief, typo-ridden email. He was a local Lakewood guy, a general practice attorney whose website advertised speeding tickets, wills, and more. He looked cheap, out of his depth, and was carrying a battered, 20-year-old briefcase. And last, my father. Graham did not sit at the table. He did not join his wife or her son. He walked to the row of spare chairs against the back wall, near the door, as far from the proceedings as he could get. He sat down, took off his glasses, and began to polish them, and polish them, and polish them, a man making himself small, retreating into a quiet, wordless fog of shame. "Good morning," Ms. Davies from the bank said, her voice crisp and devoid of emotion. "We are here to review the file regarding the fraudulent loan application, number 881B. This is an internal mediation. This is not a court of law, but our findings will be documented and will be final." She nodded to me. "Ms. Lawson, your counsel submitted a significant file of evidence. We have reviewed it. However, for the record, we would like a brief oral presentation of your claim." This was it. Ava slid my laptop onto the table and plugged it into the table's port. "My client has prepared a brief summary," Ava said. I clicked the remote. The projector fan whirred to life, casting its bright, cold light onto the white wall. I stood up. I did not look at Monica. I did not look at my father. I looked at Ms. Davies and Philip. "Good morning," I said, my voice as steady as the concrete foundation of my building. "I am here because my stepmother, Monica Vale, and my stepbrother, Chase Vale, attempted to commit real estate fraud and identity theft using my name and my property. From the corner of my eye, I saw the cheap lawyer flinch. I clicked to the first slide. The online defamation campaign, which was intended to harass and defame me, provided the digital fingerprints of its author. These are screenshots of the reviews left on my business profiles. The slide showed a side-by-side comparison. On the left, Monica's own emails, pulled from my archive. On the right, the anonymous reviews. I had highlighted the identical, peculiar phrases in red. Emotionally unstable, deceptive and a liar, needs professional help. This person is a threat. As you can see, I said. The linguistic pattern is identical, the same unique misspellings, the same hyperbolic accusations. This establishes a clear pattern of malicious intent led by Ms. Vale. I heard a sharp, choked sound from Monica. I clicked to the next slide. That intent was clarified on the morning of Saturday, October 8th. The sterile room was suddenly filled with sound. It was the audio file from Evan's security camera. We all listened as Monica's voice, clear and sharp, filled the space. "Just change the lock when she is out. Move her stuff to the garage, and she can deal with it then." Chase's muffled voice. "Mom, just use the key." My father's faint, weary protest. I stopped the audio. The silence that rushed in was deafening. Chase was bright red, sinking into his collar. Monica stared at the speaker on the table as if it were a snake. "That audio," Ava cut in, her voice slicing through the quiet, "was captured by a neighbor and has been notarized in a sworn affidavit." "And finally," I said, clicking to the last slide, "the fraud itself." The slide was a simple timeline, the email confirming the 10 a.m. appraisal, the record of the hard inquiry on my credit report, and the logs from my smart lock. "The application was filed online," I said, "and on the morning Ms. Vale and Mr. Vale arrived to move in, my smart lock was administratively accessed and the PIN changed. The IP address of the device that executed that change is registered to the Xfinity cable package at my father and Ms. Vale's home address in Lakewood." I turned to Philip. "Philip, when you and I spoke, you also had a phone number associated with the application. Did you not?" Philip nodded, checking his file. "That is correct. The primary contact number on the application, the one used to verify the initial details, was a cell phone ending in 5028. I looked directly at Monica. "That is your cell phone number, is it not, Monica?" I, she stammered, her eyes wide with panic. She looked at her lawyer, who was shuffling papers, completely lost. Anyone could have used that. That Wi-Fi is open. For guests, anyone could have used my phone." It was a pathetic, grasping defense. Ava Montrose did not raise her voice. She did not even smile. She just tilted her head. "So, to be clear, Ms. Vale," she said, her voice dripping with polite curiosity, "your position is that a stranger broke into your home, used your open Wi-Fi network to file a fraudulent 6-figure loan application in your stepdaughter's name, using your personal cell phone, and then, by sheer coincidence, you and your son showed up at Ms. Lawson's apartment on the exact same weekend, demanding she move to the garage, as documented on the audio recording." The cheap lawyer finally spoke. My client will not be answering any more questions. This is a family dispute." Ms. Davies from the bank held up her hand. "That is enough. Thank you, counselor. We do not need any more questions answered." She turned to Philip, who nodded. "The bank's internal investigation has confirmed the following," Ms. Davies said, reading from a formal document. 1. The loan application was filed without the authorization or knowledge of the homeowner, Alice Lawson. 2. The application was filed from an IP address registered to the home of Graham Blake and Monica Vale. 3. The application was associated with a phone number belonging to Monica Vale. 4. These facts, combined with the supplemental evidence of harassment and the audio recording, confirm that this was a bad faith, fraudulent application. Monica let out a sound like a deflating balloon. Chase put his head in his hands, his fingers, slick with sweat, shaking as he rubbed his temples. The bank's ruling is as follows. Ms. Davies continued. The loan file is permanently closed. A formal violation of terms has been logged in our system. A permanent, high-risk security warning has been attached to the names, social security numbers, and contact information of both Monica Vale and Chase Vale, flagging them as inadmissible for any future applications with this institution. It was a corporate death sentence. Furthermore, she said, we will be issuing a formal letter documenting these findings, which will be sent to Ms. Lawson and her counsel. This is a very serious matter. Ms. Vale. The only reason we are not referring this file to the District Attorney's Office for Criminal Prosecution is Ms. Lawson's request that we handle this internally. For now, do you understand? Monica did not speak. She was breathing fast, her chest heaving, staring at the polished wood of the table. From the back of the room, there was a quiet, heavy sigh. I glanced back. My father had put his hand over his forehead, his glasses crumpled in his fist. He was utterly, devastatingly silent. "This meeting is concluded, Ms." Davies said, closing her folder. We stood. Ava packed our laptop. We walked out. We did not look back. We were in the elevator, the doors sliding shut. When Ava looked at me, I was vibrating. "That was Act 1, she said, smoothing her jacket. "We got what we came for." "What did we get?" I asked, my voice shaky. "The bank's ruling," she said, as the elevator descended. "We now have an official, documented finding of fraud from a major financial institution. That HOA meeting this afternoon. It is not a hearing anymore. It is a sentencing." We had 3 hours until the HOA meeting. We went to a small but crowded deli across the street. The noise was a relief after the sterile silence of the bank. I ordered a turkey sandwich and a black coffee. I could not taste the bread. It was dry and simple. But my hands, which had been ice cold all morning, were finally warm as I gripped the hot paper cup. I was staring out the window, replaying Monica's face when Ms. Davies read the ruling. "Do not get comfortable," Ava said, pulling me from my thoughts. She was looking at her phone, at an email from the HOA confirming the 2 p.m. meeting time. "What do you mean, we won?" "We won the bank battle," she said. "That was about facts and money. The bank is rational. The HOA is not. An HOA board is a small-town government. It is about personalities, neighbors, and feelings. They are not afraid of a lawsuit. They are the lawsuit. This afternoon is the harder fight. This is the one about your home." She put her phone down and looked at me, her expression serious. "So, keep breathing. Do not lose your focus. The hardest part is next." I nodded. I finished my coffee, the warmth spreading through my chest. We had 10 minutes before we had to walk to my condo building's community room. I went to the deli's restroom. The mirror was old and spotted, the lighting a harsh fluorescent. I looked at myself. My eyes were wide, my face pale. I was terrified. But as I stared at my own reflection, the fear began to recede, replaced by the same cold, hard anger that had been my fuel for weeks. I was not the victim they had tried to make me. I was not the hysterical, unstable woman from their reviews. I was the owner of Hearthline Studio. I was the one who paid the mortgage. I was the one who had just faced down a bank and won. I leaned in, my hands on the cool porcelain sink, and whispered to the woman in the mirror, "The garage is not my bed." Ava was right. The bank was a sterile room of facts. The HOA meeting was a battle of personalities. The community room was on the ground floor, a beige, windowless box that smelled like stale coffee and industrial carpet cleaner. The fluorescent lights hummed, casting a sallow, sickly glow on everything. At a folding table sat the board, Mr. Henderson, the president, a fussy retired accountant, Mrs. Davis, a stern woman from the 4th floor, and a younger man I did not recognize, who was introduced as the secretary, there to take the official minutes. Ava, Evan, and I sat on one side, Monica, Chase, and their now visibly sweating, cheap lawyer sat on the other. My father, Graham, had reprised his role. He was not at the table. He was in a plastic chair against the back wall, a silent, ghostly spectator, staring at his own shoes as if they held the secrets of the universe. Mr. Henderson, the HOA president, called the meeting to order with an awkward tap of his pen. "We are here," he began, shuffling his papers. "Because of a truly unprecedented situation, we have received over 12 anonymous complaints filed against Ms. Lawson's unit in the past 3 weeks." He began to read them in his reedy voice. October 9th, 10:30 p.m. Complaint of loud music. October 12th, 2:15 a.m. Complaint of shouting and arguing, October 15th. Complaint of improper trash disposal, October 16th. Complaint of an unauthorized pet. The list went on. It was a deluge of petty, fabricated grievances, designed to paint me as an unstable and disruptive neighbor. When he finished, he looked at me over his glasses. Ms. Lawson, this is a serious pattern. The board must take action. Do you have any response? This was the moment. I did not speak. Ava stood up. We do, Ava said, her voice cutting through the stuffy air. First, Ms. Lawson can provide time-stamped security camera footage from her own entryway, as well as location data from her phone, proving she was not physically present in her apartment for 10 of the 12 alleged incidents. I slid a single printed sheet across the table. It was a simple timeline, date of complaint, and my location. October 9th, 10:30 p.m., I said. I was at a client dinner in Cherry Creek. Here's the receipt. Mr. Henderson stared at the paper. Second, Ava continued, we have a sworn, notarized affidavit from another resident, Mr. Evan Park, who is present today. Evan sat up. He was not looking at Monica. He was addressing the board. My unit is above Ms. Lawson's, he said, his voice quiet but clear. I have my own security camera. I noticed that several of these anonymous complaints were filed within minutes of Ms. Vale. He gestured to Monica. Arriving at the building and attempting to gain access, Monica stiffened. Her lawyer whispered frantically in her ear. Finally, Ava said, placing a thin bound document in front of Mr. Madge Henderson. The board has also received copies of the online harassment campaign against Ms. Lawson's business. We have prepared a brief linguistic comparison. Mr. Henderson opened the document. It was the same slide I had shown the bank Monica's known emails on one side, the anonymous HOA complaints, and the one-star reviews on the other. The same phrases, unstable, out of control, dangerous, needs help, were highlighted in red. The language, Ava said, is identical. The board is not just dealing with noise complaints, it is dealing with a resident, Ms. Lawson, who is the target of a coordinated stalking and harassment campaign by a non-resident, Ms. Vale. Mr. Henderson's face darkened. He was an accountant. He believed in patterns. He looked at Monica. Ms. Vale, this is extremely compelling evidence. It suggests that you are the source of these malicious and false reports. That is slander, Monica snapped, her voice too high. I am a respectable woman. I would never. Mr. Henderson held up his hand. The board's conclusion is clear. These reports are anonymous, malicious, and appear to be fabricated. As of this meeting, the board rules that any further anonymous complaints against any resident will be disregarded without verifiable proof. He looked directly at Monica. Furthermore, any non-resident found to be filing false reports or harassing a resident will be permanently banned from the premises. This is your only warning. It was a clean victory, but Ava was not finished. Thank you, Mr. Henderson, Ava said smoothly. That ruling is precisely the clarity we were hoping for, and it leads directly to our proposed solution. She reached into her portfolio and pulled out a new document. She slid it across the table to Monica's lawyer. This, she said, is a settlement agreement. The room went completely quiet. The hum of the fluorescent lights seemed to get louder. My client, Ava continued, has suffered significant financial and emotional damages from the events of the last 3 weeks. She has, as you know, a very strong legal case for defamation, tortious interference, and identity theft. However, she is a private person and would prefer to settle this matter quickly and quietly, without resorting to a public, costly, and deeply embarrassing lawsuit. She was laying the trap. She was offering them an out, a way to make this all go away. The terms are simple, Ava said, ticking them off on her fingers. One Ms. Vale and Mr. Vale will immediately and permanently cease all contact with Ms. Lawson. This is a full no-contact agreement. 2. They will remove every single defamatory post and review from every online platform within 24 hours. 3. They will post a public, written retraction and apology, using their real names, on all platforms where the original lies were posted. And 4. They will pay a one-time, non-disclosed sum for damages and legal fees. In exchange for this, Ms. Lawson will temporarily agree not to file her civil complaint. Monica's lawyer was reading the document, his face growing paler with every line. He understood, finally, how much trouble his clients were in. Chase understood it, too. He put his hand on his mother's arm. His voice was a low, desperate whisper. "Mom, just sign it. Mom, stop, please." He was begging. He could see the cliff edge. He wanted to go home, but Monica could not. She was choking on her own pride. To sign it would be to admit defeat, to admit she had been caught. She shook her head, her eyes burning with a hateful, furious light. She looked at Ava. "No," Monica hissed, her voice trembling. "I will not sign this. I will not be blackmailed. I will not sign anything." Chase slumped in his chair, a look of pure, agonizing defeat on his face. He knew what she had just done. Ava Montrose did not blink. She simply nodded, as if this was the outcome she had been expecting all along. "Very well," Ava said. She closed her portfolio. "Then we will proceed to Plan B." There was a heavy pause. Mr. Henderson, the HOA president, looked confused. "Plan B, Ms. Montrose. I thought the board had made its ruling." "You did, Mr. Henderson," Ava said, her voice suddenly bright and hard. "And your ruling was based on the evidence of harassment. Plan B is the evidence of the crimes." She turned back to the board. "Ms. Vale has just refused a generous offer to settle this privately. Therefore, my client has no choice but to make the full extent of this situation known to her community and subsequently to the courts. I request permission to present 2 final pieces of evidence to this board. This evidence is the reason we will be filing for an emergency restraining order and criminal charges if Ms. Vale ever sets foot on this property again." "Mr. Henderson," his eyes wide, just nodded. Ava looked at me. I slid my laptop open and plugged it into the cheap community room TV screen. "Evidence item 1, Ava announced. "This is an email, recovered from Ms. Vale's own sent folder. She was drafting an email to her son, Chase, but in her haste, she accidentally sent it to herself." I clicked. The email filled the screen. The header was visible. "From Monica Vale to Monica Vale." The IP address of the sender was visible. The timestamp was from the night before the first break-in attempt. The body of the email was short. "Chase, tomorrow is the day. Graham is on board. We will get the key from the lockbox. Just get her out of there. Tell her the loan is done. If she argues, tell her she can sleep in the garage. We need that equity. It is ours." A collective gasp went up from Mrs. Davis and the secretary. Mr. Henderson took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "She sent it to herself," I whispered. "A fatal, careless mistake." "And now, the final item," Ava said, her voice dropping, turning to ice. "This is the document we received this morning, at 10 a.m., from the Resolutions Department of First Mountain Bank." I clicked to the next slide. It was the formal letter from the bank. I had scanned it at Ava's office, the official letterhead, the case number, and the finding, blown up in 30-point font. "The bank's internal investigation has concluded that the fraudulent cash-out refinance application was filed by a non-authorized, malicious third party. The evidence, including IP logs and phone records, indicates the application was filed by Monica Vale." The room was absolutely profoundly silent. The only sound was the high-pitched hum of the lights. My father, Graham, in the back row, closed his eyes. He did not make a sound. He just sat there, in the darkness of his own making, a man erased. Chase did not just slump, he collapsed, his entire upper body folding onto the table, his head buried in his arms. He was making a small, muffled, choking sound. And Monica. Monica was frozen. Her face was a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. She had walked into an HOA meeting about noise complaints, and she had just been convicted, publicly, of a felony. She had been so focused on fighting the family battle, she never saw the legal guillotine. She stared at the screen, at her name, linked forever to the word fraudulent. She finally turned, her eyes wild, looking at Mr. Henderson, at me, at her lawyer. "I did it for my family," she suddenly shrieked, the words tearing out of her. "It was all for my family, for my son." The HOA secretary, who had been typing furiously, did not miss a beat. His fingers flew. Ava Montrose gently touched the secretary's arm. "Please ensure that last statement is entered into the minutes exactly as it was spoken," she said, her voice clear and calm. A direct, spontaneous admission of guilt. Monica's defense had just become the final, perfect nail in her own coffin. Monica's confession. Her shrieked, "I did it for my family," hung in the dead, fluorescent-lit air. The secretary's fingers were the only things moving, capturing the admission into the official record. Ava Montrose did not pause to let it sink in. She moved for the final, closing strike. She reached into her portfolio and produced one last, thick document. She did not slide it. She placed it, with deliberate, final weight, in front of Monica's useless lawyer. The cover page was stark. Notice of intent to file civil complaint. Alice Lawson versus Monica Vale and Chase Vale. Charges: identity theft, fraud, libel per se, tortious interference. "This was Plan B," Ava stated, her voice resonating in the small, terrible room. "This is the lawsuit we are filing. It is already drafted. It details every crime you have admitted to here today." Simultaneously, Mr. Henderson, the HOA president, who looked both horrified and furious, took a piece of paper from his own folder. He signed it with a sharp, angry stroke of his pen. "And effective immediately," Mr. Henderson announced, his voice shaking with anger. "This board has signed a permanent resolution. Monica Vale is hereby banned from the premises of this building. She is not a resident. She is a proven malicious actor. Any attempt to enter this property, for any reason, will be treated as criminal trespassing, and the police will be called." From the back wall, a chair scraped. My father, Graham, finally stood up. His face was a gray, crumpled mask of defeat. He looked at me, his eyes hollow. "Alice," he said, his voice a dry, broken rasp. "I am so sorry. It was not an excuse. It was not a defense. It was just a statement of fact. It was too little, too late, and it was, finally, the truth." Monica whipped her head around, her eyes wild, searching the room for a friendly face, for a single ally. She looked at her son, who was still buried in his arms. She looked at her lawyer, who was staring at the lawsuit, his mouth agape. She looked at the HOA board, who stared back with cold disgust. She looked at my father, who would not meet her gaze. There was no one. The army of relatives, the bridge club friends, the entire social structure she had built her life on, was gone. She was completely, totally alone in the wreckage she had built. "Here is the final offer," Ava said, her voice cutting like a diamond. "You have 72 hours. You will remove every single review. You will post the public, notarized apology we have drafted, under your real names. You will sign the 5-year, ironclad no-contact agreement, and you will pay the full, itemized amount for damages and legal fees as detailed in this settlement." She pointed to the lawsuit. "If you do not, in 72 hours, this document is filed with the Denver District Court. We will subpoena you. We will subpoena your phone records. We will depose every family member who commented on that Facebook post, and we will hand over the bank's fraud finding and the minutes from this meeting to the district attorney's office. This is not a negotiation. It is your choice: public humiliation and financial settlement, or public trial and potential jail time." Chase, his voice muffled by his arms, spoke first, a single, broken word. Mom. He lifted his head. His face was streaked with tears and sweat. Mom, sign it. He grabbed the settlement agreement from his lawyer. His hands were shaking so violently he could barely hold it. He pushed it across the table and shoved the lawyer's pen into her hand. Sign it, now, please. Monica stared at the paper. Her breath was coming in short, ragged gasps. Her entire empire, her sense of self, her entitlement, was crashing down on her. She picked up the pen. She signed the no-contact agreement. She signed the agreement to remove the posts. She signed the public apology. Then she got to the last page, the financial settlement, the part where she had to pay for what she broke. She hesitated. Her hand froze. The pen hovered over the line. I could see the calculation in her eyes, the humiliation. She could swallow. The cost. She could not. This is too much, she whispered, looking at her lawyer. Ava Montrose did not argue. She did not bargain. She simply, silently, unzipped her bag, pulled out her laptop, and opened it. She clicked the trackpad. Very well, she said, her voice casual, as if she were checking the weather. I will just open the e-file portal for the district court now. We can have this filed in the next 3 minutes. Monica watched as Ava's screen lit up, watched as her mouse hovered over the link. Submit new civil filing. The pen in Monica's hand made a sharp tack sound as it fell from her trembling fingers onto the table. She snatched it back up. She did not just sign the last page. She scribbled, a frantic, angry, defeated scrawl. She signed. I let out a breath I did not even know I was holding. It felt like the first breath I had taken in 3 weeks. It was a ragged, shuddering gasp that was half sob, half relief. It was the sound of the pressure valve finally releasing. It was over. Mr. Henderson from the HOA stood up. Alice, he said, his voice now kind. Please come with me to the office. I followed him out, Ava at my side. We left them all in that toxic room, Monica, staring at her own signature. Chase, weeping into his hands, and my father, a ghost, standing alone against the back wall. In the management office, Mr. Henderson took my old keycard and cut it in half with a pair of scissors. We have already updated the system, he said, handing me a new, clean, white card. This is your new access. All other codes, including guest and visitor access tied to your father's name or Ms. Vale's phone number, have been permanently purged from the system. I took the card. It was clean, blank, mine. The drive back to my condo was a blur. The late afternoon Denver sun was low, casting long, golden shadows across the highway. It was warm in the car. My leather tote, heavy with the binders, sat on the passenger seat. They were not weapons anymore. They were the first 3 bricks of my new foundation. I let myself into my building. I stood in front of my own door. The new, high-security lock the locksmith had installed looked solid, impassive. I did not use the keycard. I typed in my own code, the code I had set. Click, whir. The door opened. The first thing that hit me was the smell. The faint, sharp, clean scent of the mint on my windowsill, catching the last bit of sun. I had left the warm yellow lamp on in the corner, and the light felt like a welcome. I walked in and put my tote bag down. I took the 3 white binders, and I did not put them on my desk. I opened my hall closet, put them on the top shelf, behind my spare blankets, and I closed the door. They were an archive. They were not my life. I looked at the empty space by the door, the space where Chase's suitcase had been, where he had planned to roll his life into mine. It was just an empty, clean, hardwood floor, quiet, peaceful. My phone, which I had put on silent, was vibrating on the kitchen counter. I picked it up, a cascade of notifications. A formal email from Yelp. We have concluded our investigation and removed the following 5 reviews. An alert from Google. The following content has been removed for violating our terms of service. And then, a new notification, a link, sent from Ava. It was to Chase's Facebook page. The old post was gone. In its place was a new one. It was the formal, notarized apology Ava had written. I, Monica Vale, and I, Chase Vale, publicly apologize to Alice Lawson and Hearthline Studio. The statements we made, both publicly and anonymously, were false, malicious, and had no basis in fact. We fabricated these claims. We deeply regret the damage we have caused. It was signed with their full legal names. As I was reading it, a new email popped up in my inbox. The subject line was Harbor Pine, Contract Confirmation. I opened it. It was from the executive. Dear Alice, we were so impressed with your presentation. We also want to say, we did our due diligence and were made aware of the online situation you were facing. We are choosing you for this project, not just because of your talent, but because of the integrity and resilience you showed in handling that crisis. The contract is attached. We are excited to begin. I stared at the words. Because of how you handled the crisis. The thing Monica had built to destroy me had become the very thing that proved my strength. I walked to my living room window and opened it wide. The cool evening mountain air, tasting of pine and the distant city, flooded the room. I took a deep breath. The garage, the word my father and Monica had used to define my new, small, temporary place in the world. It was just a hollow word. It had no power. It was just a place to park a car. I picked up my phone. I sent one last text message to Ava Montrose. Thank you. Close the no contact file. Then I put my phone on the charger, and I turned the ringer off. I went to the kitchen, filled my kettle, and spooned fresh mint leaves into my favorite mug. As the water heated, I walked to my front door. I checked the deadbolt. I slid the security chain into its track. A familiar, metallic click, but this time, it was not a sound of fear. It was a sound of peace. I locked my own door, on my own terms, and I smiled. From now on, no one decides where I sleep but me. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I see all of you in the comments, and I am so grateful you are here. Let me know where you are listening from. I would love to connect and hear your own thoughts. Please subscribe to Maya Revenge Stories, like this video, and hit that hype button so more people can hear this story.